Find the light.
Set the tone.
Make the shot. Feeling a drive. It's when I'm most alive.
Free to explore. Finding my passion. In unique colors to resonate.
Telling personal stories.
Enjoying spontaneous moments.
Expressing emotions I can't even explain. It all feels like me, and I see things differently now.
Nikon Z50 II.
Discover, play.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nikon TV. I guess happy April Fools, because I am not your typical host for these shows. My name is Russ Vanderleer. And I'm lucky today we're doing an Ask Me Anything, an AMA, with the super talented Chef Dwight Smith. Welcome, Dwight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Really excited to have you here for this. So, Dwight, I mean, I guess I could let you introduce yourself a little bit, just in terms of your background, just to give our audience a bit of a sense of your time, how you've arrived where you're at in terms of your culinary and social media journey.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Chef Dwight Smith. I'm a full-time content creator, chef, recipe developer. I primarily spend most of my energy on the online platforms, right. But I am trying to do a little bit more in-person stuff like pop-ups and different events and stuff like this in the future. So yeah.
I mean, you've been busy. Like you were just on an episode last week as a celebrity judge on Top Chef, which is super awesome. Yeah. I would not want to be cooking some for you. I'd be a little bit nervous about making some Jamaican patties, right?
I'm actually a pretty simple, straightforward guy, to be honest with you.
So you and I had the fortune of meeting, I guess, last year in November in Toronto, just by chance. And that was sort of when you came on my radar. And I guess I'm tagged tonight for tonight's episode just because I'm a bit of a foodie at Nikon, and so your channel was a really just like instant follow for me, right? Just you're creating content that I like, and I honestly have to say, like in the last few months that I've been following you actually become one of my favorite follows on Instagram, and I was trying to think about why that was, and it's you do a lot of different things, right? Like you profile some restaurants, you do some community outreach, that kind of thing. But obviously a big part of your content is, the recipes that you profile. And, what I think why I like them is that, they're punchy, they're quick, like everyone's, got short attention spans these days, but they're substantive, right? But even more so, they're accessible. Like anyone watching one of your videos can look at it and go, I can do this, right? You're not doing techniques that are, insanely difficult for a home chef. You're not making recipes with ingredients that people have never heard of. Right. You're doing stuff that's going to catch you, like even down to things like your music choice and your production quality. It's all really high. And so I find like I watch everything you produce because I truly enjoy it. And I've made a couple of your recipes now because I watch it and I go, that looks good. I got to do it, right? So
awesome.
This is super fun. So for those that are watching tonight, it is an AMA and Ask Me Anything. You're not asking me, you're asking Chef Dwight. And so we're going to be looking for your comments and questions in the chat. But I do have a couple of questions to kind of get things going to sort of spur some conversation. So, if we scroll your Instagram channel, like it's mouthwatering, like you have so many good recipes. And I guess my question maybe is, like, how do you arrive at hey, this is what I want to, this is the video I'm going to make, right? This is the recipe I'm going to showcase. Like, what's your sort of thought process for deciding this is the tutorial you're going to give in this post?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of factors. That's a very, very good question. There's a lot of factors that go into the content and the decision of, you know, which direction that we eventually go for each video. I'd like to think that, you know, it starts with the time of year in terms of, like, you know, what's available. I don't like to do, you know, too many soups or really hearty stews in the middle of the summer. And I wouldn't do a ceviche in the winter. So I like to base it firstly on the season and like where we're at. But you know, another important factor is also, you know, are there things that are trending on the internet? Are there subjects that are, you know, doing well that I can put my own spin on? So that's a lot of what goes into it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I've seen a ceviche recipe. Maybe I missed it, but if not,
Not yet. Stay tuned.
So I do like me some ceviche. So I mean, I guess one of the other questions I have then, spinning it you know, away from the cooking component a little bit, is, you know, part of the reason you're here is because you're using Nikon tools to create your content, right? And when you and I had met, you were already on that journey, and you've since you know, enhanced your kit. You're using a Z52, and you've got a 14-30 lens.
Yep.
What's the behind the scenes look like? Like, what's the process? You know, because cooking's a lot of work. It's busy. Like, ask my wife yesterday. I made a disaster in the kitchen, and all I was doing was cooking. You're filming, you're recording while you're doing this. Like, so, like, what's the setup? What are you doing? How does this go down when you're creating content in the kitchen?
You know, I'll be the first to admit, you know, we all have our good days and bad days. So there are times where right outside of the frame, it is, you know, maybe not as picturesque, let's say.
Sure.
But it's all about doing the little things in advance, so that when you really cooking, really getting into it, those things are already taken care of. Yeah, I mean, I cook most of my videos out of a small apartment, and if it's not out of the small apartment, it's out of a studio kitchen not too far from my neighborhood. So it's all about lighting. So that was one of the first big things that I got, was a couple big professional lights,
Sure.
just to make sure that the camera can really grab the details on the food. So that's super important for me. But yeah, I'm human too. Right outside of the frame, sometimes I say, you know, let's make sure, let me tighten this frame up. It can see a little too much of my sink right now, and I haven't got there yet.
Yeah, look at the dishes. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I made your sausage and fusilli pasta with the vodka sauce last night, and like, I don't know what happened, but there was stuff everywhere. So and I was thinking about this. I'm just going, like, how do you record this at the same time, right? Like, I wind up with sauce on my lens. Like, so
yeah, been there, that's for sure.
So you've been working with the Z52 for a little bit. Like, how are you finding that for creating your content?
I've actually got that right here. Yeah, it's been fantastic. It's yeah, I mean, I don't have enough really good things to say about it, just because it's been such a great upgrade in my content creation. You know, little things like, you know, I'll be the first to admit, sometimes when I'm shooting myself, I'm not behind the camera to actually, you know, be taking care of every setting and dialing everything in. So sometimes I have to kind of trust the process if I'm doing a pour shot and I'm, you know, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 feet away from the camera itself. With the Z52, even if I were to make a misstep in terms of the settings that I input, it'll still grab the shot. It'll still make a gorgeous looking frame, and it'll be, you know, I might be kicking myself in the moment, and then I upload the footage onto my laptop, and I'm like, wow, we're good to go.
That's good, because, you know, it's, you know, some other shots, you know, like if you were shooting a model, right, and you don't get the shot, you could just have her just, you know, okay, recreate that walk or whatever it is that you're doing, right? But when you're making a recipe, you know, and you've seared that steak and you mess it up, now you got to sear another steak, right?
Yep. And sometimes you don't have another steak.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So I mean, it adds to the cost and that kind of thing too, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's great. It's always good to have a reliable tool. So okay, let's go back to the kitchen side of things for a second. So we, if you have your most reliable tool, your camera wise, as you said, 52. What is the one thing kitchen wise that is indispensable to you?
I mean, I'm gonna kind of sound cliche, but a sharp knife. A sharp
Yeah.
knife.
Okay.
A
Yep.
sharp knife is as a chef's best friend.
Yep.
It'll, a lot of people ask things like, how do you cut an onion without crying? How do you do things fast and efficiently?
Yeah.
How did you get through X or Y? And it's like, it all comes down to a sharp knife.
Absolutely, which is safer too, right? So
Much safer, much safer, much
yeah,
safer.
absolutely. Yeah, your knife skills are pretty good. That's the one thing I look at it and go, like, I can chop an onion like that, but I'm not going to do it at the speed that, or probably consistency that you would do it at, right? So
Well, I try to. I always said, I'm like, I want to make my recipes approachable and at least easy for people to replicate.
yeah,
But I also want to give them the highest version of that.
sure.
Where they can where it can go if everything comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always good to give people that inspiration, right? And something, to aspire to, right? It's I can
Exactly.
make this recipe, but also can I improve my skills in the kitchen while I'm doing it, right? Which
Precisely.
I think a lot of us home cooks, that's we're never going to be a Red Seal chef like you, but we'd like to be better at this. For us, it's a hobby than we were before we watched your video, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, no, that's great. You've got a mix of recipes on your site. We have a question here. Would you do you prefer making sweet or savory recipes?
Okay, yeah, that's a fun one. I definitely prefer savory, although I probably prefer to eat sweet because I have a massive sweet tooth.
Yeah,
I love my desserts. I don't think I've been to a restaurant in years where I haven't saved a little extra room, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
But in terms of cooking, my wheelhouse is savory. Yeah.
Do you have one thing savory that you feel is like your, well, or maybe more than one thing that you feel is like your signature? This is Dwight throwing down. This is my signature thing.
Honestly, I don't know if I would put myself in a pigeonhole with one dish, but I would say any kind of braised red meat on like a mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
like any kind of variation of that, I'm good.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. I made some beef short rib not that long ago.
Exactly, like a nice beef short rib on mash, and then of course, if you know me, I love my Jamaican food, and I don't always want to be biased. I don't want to sound like a broken record when I say Jamaican every time. So,
no, but I mean, that's one of the best parts about cooking and about food, right? Is that it showcases your background, your heritage, your culture, right?
Exactly.
And we all have our own roots, but it's also fun too, right? Like I'm not Jamaican, and I love the idea of having food that isn't what I'm used to necessarily, because it's fun, it's an adventure, it's great to try new things. I mean, there's a whole world of food out there, and that's kind of the best part about it. Like I look at some of your recipes and I would never think to make them because that's not my background, it's not what I know. But it still intrigues me to either try making it myself, or at least, hey, that sounds really good, I want to go get one of those, right? So yeah, I mean, it's great. You do a great job of showcasing a lot of Toronto area restaurants as well for the sort of the same thing, which is awesome too, because it helps lift other people up, helps inspire, some other people to check out some places and help some of those local businesses, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So we do have another question here, just as a pretty quick one from Mickey. Just confirming what camera it is that you're using. So Dwight's using the newer Z52, or if you're from the US, then a Z52. We prefer our Z here. So,
yes, and the Z52 is the newer generation of the Z50. just so that, people can differentiate that. Because sometimes I've mentioned people, I use the Z52, and then they send me a link to the Z50, just letting people know that there is a slight difference there.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge from the Nikon standpoint. I mean,
exactly.
The Z52 is it's got the newer X-Speed 7 processor, right? So just
exactly,
autofocus is so good with that camera, right? It was a huge improvement, and there's some creative opportunities with like our in-camera picture controls and things like that. If you just want to express yourself a little bit more, that camera is a pretty powerful tool compared to the original Z50.
Yeah. There's just a lot more options, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have another question from Chris here. Do you have a favorite country that you've visited just based on food, or maybe another country, like, do you have a cuisine, that just inspires you? Obviously Jamaican, because you've got a personal connection, but if we step past that, what's your jam?
Favorite? I mean, it's a great question. First thing I'll say right off the bat is I haven't done enough traveling, and I'm kind of frustrated with myself about that. I'm such a foodie. I'm a chef. I need to be globetrotting. I need to be running around. I need to be, all over the Caribbean, South America, Asia, you name it. But in recent, I would say I would have to cheat a little bit and say my time down in Turks and Caicos. I was really blown away because it's a smaller island. I didn't think too much of it. I haven't met too many people from there, but the food was unbelievable. The food was fantastic.
What about it stood out to you?
There was a few. I mean, it's in the Caribbean, so there was a few Caribbean restaurants that just had some food that I was really impressed with. Just a high level of skill involved, and also the vibe of the restaurants with the ocean side. I was blown away. One place in Turks and Caicos called Omar's is probably one of my favorite restaurants that I've been to in the last year or so.
Well, that sounds awesome. I'll admit that's food I'm less familiar with. I mean, you're fortunate in Toronto. There is such a strong Caribbean scene there. You've got a lot of opportunities for restaurants and stuff to check out as well, too, right? Like, I'm in Alberta, and we do have some, but it's definitely the breadth of what offerings you have they're much, much greater. So we have a question for Caribbean restaurants. Do you have a favorite one in Toronto? Or maybe two or three if you
maybe I'll just list a few that I like. I mean, if you've seen my Instagram profile recently, a couple of weeks ago I profiled a restaurant called Sugarcane. That's over at Pape and Danforth in Toronto. Fantastic restaurant. It's run by three sisters. They're all from of Caribbean descent.
Nice.
Some restaurants downtown. In terms of sit down as opposed to takeout restaurants, I like Chubby's Jamaican. I like there's a place called Miss Licklemore's Rum Corner. That's on Dundas West. That's fantastic. It's a Haitian restaurant. There's a place that's been on my list for a while called Conejo Negro. So that's a fantastic option. And then for takeout restaurants, I can't miss my favorite Scarborough hidden gem, which is Patty Time. It's at Brimley and Lawrence, the best Jamaican patties in the city.
Okay, noted. I'm gonna go back to this video and make some notes.
It's hard, and honestly, it's hard because I don't want to miss any places. There's so many places that I love.
Absolutely.
Simone's would be another one. I could go on for an hour.
Yeah, no, honestly, and I get it for sure, right? I mean, they all have their niche, and it just depends what mood you're in, and kind of what flavor you want to hit.
Yeah, are we going takeout? Are we sitting down? Are we going for? Yeah. Is it a Saturday night or is it a quick Tuesday lunch?
Sometimes it comes down to a specific dish. Like, I'm craving this, right? So.
Yeah, and anybody that's watching this that wants any more deeper, just shoot me a DM and tell me what part of the city you're in for a little bit more of a specific, awesome. And I'll try to steer you in the right direction.
That's awesome. Okay, so swinging back to the Nikon side of things a little bit, is there a tool that you don't yet have in your arsenal that you know about? Like, even if you don't know a specific model or something, is there something else that you're eyeballing that you feel would, sort of improve your craft, your content creation, or
Yeah,
even
for
if it's
sure.
just photography in general or videography in general?
I think one thing that I haven't really touched on is the macro side of things.
Right.
So I don't have any lenses that do the the really close up
Close
to
up.
within
Yeah.
millimeters.
Yeah.
So the macro videography is definitely, and photography, with that said,
Right.
is something that I want to deep dive into. I know, again, it's not it's something that takes some time, and as I've gotten more comfortable with my camera, I think now's the time where I can make some of those jumps. But yeah,
Absolutely.
probably macro, and then outside of that, maybe just kind of dabbling in the higher frame rates and things of that nature, just like 4K 120, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that'd be kind of neat if you're doing like any kind of like high action stuff, and like, but slow down your knife work so we can see what you're doing, so we can get better at it.
Exactly.
We have another question here. Is there something like from the culinary standpoint in the kitchen that you want to take a deeper dive into that you haven't had a chance to do yet, like some technique or cuisine or something that you're eager to tackle but you haven't got to yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to like learning. Even though I've been in the kitchen for such a long time, I'm doing this, I'm getting all this validation online, which I love, but at the same time, there's just so much more to learn.
Absolutely.
I would love to do the continents. I would love to do a bit of a trip in South America. And when I say a trip, I don't mean, as much as I would probably stop and do a little bit of the touristy stuff. I'm really talking about doing food trips in, the big places in South America, in Asia. I'd love to go to Japan. And then naturally finish that up with, Europe and a little bit of Africa. Luckily, I have been to Europe a few times, but not so much as a foodie.
Right.
So I would love to do Europe as well, whether it's Spain, Portugal, Italy, and then just more in the Caribbean. As a general statement, I would like to travel more, but through the lens of a chef, so I can report back to my followers, and the community, and kind of, I grew up loving Anthony Bourdain, so that's the first name that comes to my mind.
Yep.
Is just being a bit of a, this is what's going on in these places.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting mindset, right? Just for someone as experienced as you've got 20 years, experience as a chef, and yet, for you, the idea that continuing to learn is still so important. And I think that it has such a direct parallel to photography, right? That, I personally, and I do a very different genre of photography, but, I've been doing it for longer, not to age myself. And I think that's one of the best things, is always having that sort of openness to learning. There's, you can know a lot, and there's always somebody who's pushing a boundary, doing something new. The technology's evolved, whatever it is. You can constantly just keep learning, and having that mindset that, like, hey, I know a lot, but there's still a lot I don't know, is awesome. I think that just keeps you growing and makes you better, probably as a photographer, and I'm sure as a chef. So that's fantastic. So we have a question from Kenny, who says, you have so many followers, which you do, and which is great. And he wants to know if you have any tips to grow your social account. And I mean, that's a big part of it, right? You have a loud voice, but it's not easy to get there, and it's a competitive space that you're in, I think, too. So yeah, if you have any tips to share.
That's a great, Kenny. Shout out to Kenny. That's a fantastic question. It's a tough question, but it's a great question. Stay true to yourself, and and find out, once you find out the exact niche and what your calling is in terms of what you'd like to show social media, the next step is really locking in on what is working within that niche. So a little bit of being a good content creator and being able to grow your audience is understanding who within your niche is doing things similarly to what you want to do, and then put your own spin on it and make it you. Very similar to any business, for example, Nikon, I'm sure they're very aware of the other competitors that they're up against. It's important to know what people are doing within your niche, what's working, what's not working, so you can kind of narrow things in, and then you effectively skip some steps in terms of the trial and error, because you're already kind of gravitating towards what's already working.
Right.
And then the creative part is putting your own personality and your own spin on that kind of thing. And then as you continue to do that and get better at it, you build confidence. And then you'll notice naturally as you're doing that, your audience is growing and they're becoming more appreciative of your voice. Right.
Yeah. That's huge. And I think you're so right about authenticity, right? There's just so much content out there. If you're true to yourself and you're really putting out something that's genuine and personal, I think that just does so much to engage and grow your audience, and probably, I would think, I mean, it would make it more rewarding for you too, right? You're showcasing yourself to the world, right? This is Dwight, right? So
yeah. And just to add on that, I think I hear a lot of growth coaches. There is actually people that'll coach you through it. And I think one thing that they always preach is consistency and this and that. And that is a piece, but you also need to do your homework. So it's not just about pressing post, pressing share on every piece of content that's ready. It's also understanding, like we said, what's working, what's not working. And then when you start to figure that out, then becoming consistent is more valuable at that point.
That's great. And so we have a follow-up question from Kenny too, just in terms of the you speaking to, I guess, finding your niche and building on that. Kenny wants to know, like, did you see something that you did that really kind of you felt kicked off that sort of, maybe influx of people following you on social? Like, was there a key moment where things really just clicked and got going?
Yeah, I think there was a few moments, but I think specifically that would have been probably in the middle, I would say 2021, 2022. There was a rise of chefs becoming, popular over the internet. I don't know if it stemmed from the pandemic or whatever, but I was seeing that. I was working at a job. I was happy, but there was something missing for sure. I was definitely missing that creative outlet. Right. So I started to make the videos, and then, a light bulb went off in my head. But I think it wasn't until I made, it was a video, I think it was a steak sandwich, where I don't know what happened, the lighting, the recipe, the look of it, and just people started to go crazy. And wow, that was all the confidence I needed to say, you know what, I might be able to make this work.
Plus a good steak sandwich is always there.
But I can't, there's no other way to say it. Yeah. It's challenging. Sometimes you're about to win and you didn't know. You have successes right around the corner, and you just got to keep putting in those hours, and you don't know it's coming. And your hard work pays off as long as you're working smarter, not harder. And then you match those two things. I think that a lot of people that put those together, they find success. When you're doing something online that you're really passionate about, that resonates and it translates. So it starts with finding what you're passionate about and finding your niche, and then executing on the strategy.
No, that sounds totally fair. We have another question here too. Okay, so we mentioned kind of off the top last week, you were a celebrity chef on an episode of Bravo's Top Chef, right? It was super cool. I watched it. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience? Was it scary? Was it fun? How did it come together?
Yeah, being honest,
Dish.
I was terrified. I'm not used to, when we're talking about a camera, I'm talking about something that, looks like this, pretty snazzy, looks pretty cool, but it's small. Okay.
Sure.
If they had turned the camera around in some of those scenes, there was, 40, 50, 60 people behind the camera. So I was terrified. I already am not the best public speaker. We're working on it. But yeah, that was something pretty big. It was a big milestone moment for me. Very terrifying, but everybody on the set and all of the stars there were fantastic. So I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
It sounds amazing. How was it with the other chefs that were there competing, right? I mean, obviously you don't wind up on that show without being talented, right? You have to be somewhat decent doing that kind of stuff, I would think, right? I'm not bragging to be on a show like that. And all of a sudden you're the one sort of sealing their fate, right? How did that feel?
It was tough. It was really tough. Because I instantly have respect for this panel of people that are standing in front of me, waiting for me to tell them what's going on. And it's like, okay. But I loved it. As you've probably seen, there's a Canadian competitor on the show.
Yep.
So naturally, you want to see a Canadian chef do well, but you got to keep it real. You got to keep it honest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Got to put the biases aside for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. Did you know what you'd be judging ahead of time, or were you kind of kept in the dark?
I knew the theme, but I didn't. That was about it. That was about it.
Wow.
Just a theme and just a vague understanding, but I basically went in blind. I mean, I've been watching the show for years. Right. So, but yeah, I think the first time you do, any big production, it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah, no, I would imagine that. I'm not totally used to doing this kind of stuff, but I have to overcome a couple butterflies just for this, right? So
there you go.
Imagine having a whole, 60 people and huge broadcast cameras trained on you, right? So
exactly, yeah,
and an audience of your peers in a way too, right? So
that was, I think, that was the biggest thing was, there's as any set, and I'm sure everybody understands, there's takes, things happen, right?
Right.
And you're obviously standing in front of your peers, and nobody wants to look silly. So
no, for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's good. It was
I'll be better the next time I do it. How about that?
All right, that sounds good. You let me know when that's going to be, because I will absolutely watch it. We have a question from Daryl in the chat, and he says he has a Z52 also, which is great.
Nice.
And he wants to buy a lens for food photos. So he's just wondering if there's, something you recommend, and I'll help on this too. But
yeah, for sure,
because you're doing food photos, if you have, something that you recommended, and he also is, asking about, a lens to take pictures when he's out with his friends. So maybe you give the food perspective from what you're doing. Let me know what you're
right. So I had two lenses that I loved, that are both perfect on the Z52. First being the 24 1.7.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the 24 1.7. It's, as far as in the grand scheme of the lenses, it's an affordable lens, and it's a wide angle and it's really sharp. So I definitely recommend looking at that because it's good for photo and for video. And then I also used when I was getting going, I used the 40 f2, and that's another amazing lens as well. And when I say used in past tense, there was nothing wrong with that. It's just I have a zoom lens now, so I can it's a little bit easier and more convenient from a video perspective when I don't have to change the lens. But those two lenses, I would buy them again 100 times.
No, that's awesome. And what's funny is you say the 40 f2 from a food perspective, and when Daryl popped this question in the chat and was asking about perspective of his friends, that was a lens that I kind of thought of as well too, because it's so small, it's so light, it's got that big bright aperture. So if you wanted to do like some nice candid photos of your friends, you're out for a nice dinner, and you know you want to have like a little bit of a portrait kind of shot, but you also want to something that's small and light and honestly pretty reasonably priced. The 40 is a great lens for that too. So I mean that's awesome. That can be double duty, right? It can be a good food lens, can be a good friend lens. If you wanted for Daryl's sake, if you wanted something with a little bit wider perspective, then you could also look at the 28 2.8, which is technically a full frame lens, but it's still small, it's still light. You put it on the camera, it's gives you that little bit wider perspective, but that nice shallow depth of field. That's actually the lens I'm using right now. I'm streaming using a Z DX camera. I have a ZFC, and I'm actually using the 28 right now for my video because I get this a little bit wider perspective, but then I've got this nice soft background behind me. So those would probably that's awesome about the 40, right? That it kind of hits for you, and it was also one of the first things I thought of for the second part of Daryl's question. So
exactly.
I guess Daryl, your answer is go get a Z40 bill. That's perfect. So
pretty much, yeah.
We have another question here. This is an interesting one. Do you like bread?
So I do like bread. I love bread.
Me too.
Actually. I love bread. But you don't want to fill up on bread. Like if you're out on a nice night out, like you want to have a little bit of bread. When I go to the Keg or wherever, a steakhouse, of course, a little bread with some nice warm butter or whatever. Warm bread with some whipped butter. But I don't want to fill up on bread. I want the other stuff. But yes, I love bread. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Shout out to all my friends that are bakers. Give me a loaf of sourdough next time I see you.
I love sourdough.
Exactly. No, but a quick answer. I love bread.
Okay. Yep. Me too. Perfect. Awesome. We have a question from Joshua here. Just tips on a camera angle for food photos. So I'm going to take this from the perspective maybe of not like a focal length, like how wide, but like when you're doing a food shot, what's the actual angle you're shooting at? Do you find like top down, or are you looking side angle? I'm guessing a little bit's probably going to depend on exactly what it is you're showcasing, but any perspectives on that?
I mean, personally, I like to get right in there. I don't know what the angle per se would be. But
not even degrees or anything, but just like, are you going like kind of top down? Are you going sideways? Like
I'm definitely going on more of a side angle with the food. I like kind of a down slightly from the side. Nice and tight shots. Just a tip, I guess it would be like I'm always shooting. I generally, again, depending on for food, I like to shoot into the light. I know sometimes, the shadows really, help make a scene maybe more dramatic or whatever. But with food, I'm usually trying to see everything. I'm usually bumping my f-stop as high as I can just to make sure I get everything in focus, and then worrying about it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have like any other, photography tips for someone shooting food? I mean, I'll be honest, it's not a genre of photography I do a lot, so you definitely would, you'd have a stronger background on that.
I mean, I work with food photographers, so I not on my regular content per se, but on some of my special content, I do work with a food photographer, and they're always doing the best shots that we get out of those sessions are always top downs.
Okay.
They're always well lit. Almost like a table setting. If you can set it up like as if it was a table setting and then get that POV from the top, and also the fact that your plane is completely flat, so everything is almost automatically in focus.
Right. That's a really good tip.
Yeah. So I do have sometimes when I get in there really tight, the back end of the plate won't be in focus. So it's something to think about. So it just really depends on what you want. Yep. But if you're in the top down position and you can, and the food is on the table there, you'll have a better shot of getting more things in focus there.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And I like the idea of having like the place setting and stuff around too, just because it adds a little context. It tells a little bit of a story, right? Like
Exactly.
the sensation of someone's about to eat this is probably going to be more prevalent to the viewer if there's a fork there, right? Or a napkin and maybe a nice glass of wine, right? Like, so yeah.
Exactly.
So I really like that. That's really good. And absolutely, when you talk about, that plane of focus, that's huge, because you're right. Like, you're shooting such small, relatively small subject matter. Yeah. I mean, if you're shooting the front end of a burger, the back half is going to be soft, right? So, but top down, yeah, it definitely would make things a lot easier for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. What's next? Do you have can you dish on what recipe you're going to showcase next on your Instagram, or is that top secret?
Good one. I can't tell you the exact recipe that I'm going to do next. Definitely going to throw together something with salmon.
Oh, nice.
Tell you that, something with salmon. I haven't done enough with salmon. I mean, salmon's such a popular protein in everybody's house that
my favorite fish.
That I really, I think I need to show people a few different ways to take salmon to the next level. And then I have something as well with some chicken drumsticks. Again, I'm really trying to lean into approachable, but big flavors. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I honestly, like, I meant that when I said it off the top. Like, I've watched a ton of your recipes. I even went back, like, before I was following you. I was like, what did he do already? What do I need to catch up on? And I just found, like, every recipe that I watched was pretty sure, like, the only one that I was kind of like, if I was totally new at this, I might be intimidated by, is you had one where you spatchcocked a chicken. And I've done that. I've spatchcocked turkeys, right? So I was fine with this. As soon as you said that, I'm like, I don't need to get done here. But I can also see, like, that's an intimidating cooking process if you've never spatchcocked a chicken before, right? So
True.
that was the only time I watched one of your videos where it was like, that might be the one thing that maybe the odd person would be like, and everything else, like, it's just anyone watching this could go and make one of your recipes. Like, that's what I love. And they're going to look at it and go, this looks delicious, and I can action on this. I can make this happen today in my kitchen, which is fantastic.
That's the idea.
Which is great. So you want to, one more thing, maybe, what's next for you? What's the next steps? Do you know? Or is that top secret too?
No, I mean, I try to be pretty transparent with my moves, but yeah, I've got a really cool pop-up that I'm doing April 14th in Parkdale, which is in kind of the west end of Toronto.
Right.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. I put a little bit of information, like, within my feed, so not too hard to find if you are interested. Lots of fun.
So sorry to interrupt. That's like a collaboration with a restaurant then.
Yes, exactly. It's called Simple Things. It's a like, I'd say, like a gastro bar in the West End, or a cocktail bar, if you will. And nice. We're going to be taking over the food for the night.
That's awesome. So you're defining the menu, and you're in the kitchen cooking and kicking out the regular chef then, essentially.
Exactly.
Or they're helping you.
Yeah, we're just putting the final touches on the menu now. So, yeah,
that's awesome. That is
looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds great. I look forward to. I know you'll post about it, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out for you. So,
yeah, for sure.
So as we get close to wrapping here, is there any other tips, tricks, secrets, anything you want the audience to know? A final message from Dwight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to continue to, follow me, at Chef Dwight Smith. If you're looking for fun, approachable recipe ideas, different cooking tips and tricks, and then also some culinary adventures around the city. Stay tuned. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some events this summer. I'm going to be doing a lot more in-person things, which is give my audience an opportunity to actually come meet me, interact with me, and then also, get some of these questions out, live in person as well. So,
no, that's great. I honestly, like, just me, when I met you, you stood out. We had such an engaging conversation. So, like, that's a great opportunity for other people to have that same chance. Exploring Canada posted that they just love your videos. and said you're such a pro, which is fantastic. I feel the same way. I love watching your content. So
well, thank you. It's greatly appreciated. That's why I do it.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah, keep it coming. So I guess on behalf of Nikon Canada, I'd like to thank everyone for watching tonight and all the great questions that we've had. This was a super fun conversation. I think everyone is probably a little bit hungry now after watching this. Which is good, right? So go watch Chef Dwight Smith's videos, get inspired. Go, if you already ate supper, that's okay. He's got lots of dessert recipes. Go make one and enjoy it. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ordinary moments that people may not notice when they're moving so fast. Daily life becomes cinematic.
What's good about having a good autofocus is that you don't have to worry about the technical aspect of the shot. Instead, you can focus more on the situation itself. I think what I like most about the camera is how compact and light it is, yet it does not limit you. Color brings out emotions.
It gives you a sense of individuality to a scene that maybe complements your own personality. If I had this camera starting out, it probably would have helped me a lot. Is a camera complicated to use? It doesn't have to be.
It's just you and your subject. Intimate, no distractions.
It's like seeing the world in a new way.